What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MikeTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And this is Back to Black. It's currently available on Peacock and it does have audio description. This is a documentary, not a documentary, it's a docudrama about Amy Winehouse. The documentary, which I wanted to mention, if you would rather watch that, is Amy. So you can choose whether or not to watch an interpretation of someone's life or a representation of somebody's life. Two different things, by the way. They sound similar, but they're different. So this is directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, who gets really a lot of unfair stuff thrown at her a lot of times, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And we got Marisa Abela playing Amy Winehouse, Lady Gaga. This is a terrible review. I'm gonna keep it though, because this shows you about how interested in this film I am. We've got Eddie Marsan is in this, Jack O'Connell is in this, Leslie Manville. Yeah, it's mostly Marisa playing Amy. I wasn't a huge Amy Winehouse fan. She has a couple songs that I'm familiar with, but like not a huge fan. I always looked at her hair and I was like, what is up with the hair? Like, what? Does she wash it? Is it a wig? Like, what are we doing here with the hair? Yeah, I wasn't into the Beehive. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But Marissa does a lot of the singing here from everything that I've read, which makes sense because there's some things where it's like, how would you have captured Amy's voice in that moment? Like things where she's just kind of like improvising on the spot, you know? Like there's this one scene where I think, here's my interpretation of the scene. It felt like there were a bunch of like Jewish people, maybe like in temple, and they were like praying or doing some sort of like traditional Jewish chant hymns. And then Amy walks in and just starts singing Fly Me to the Moon. And I was like, what is this moment? What are we doing here? Is she, I just, anyway, I don't know. I don't know what Sam Taylor Johnson wants to say with this. I know she didn't write the script, but she agreed to direct the script. You know what I'm saying? So she must have felt a connection to it. There must have been something that she wanted to say or felt like was being said through it. I'm not really sure what that is. This feels like a film that wants to blame Amy for her problems and wipe away clean everyone else, but it doesn't ever really address why Amy was the way that she is. Everybody else gets to kind of be like, well, it wasn't me. Everybody else looks pretty good. Eddie Marsan plays Amy's dad, and even though it becomes pretty obvious that at some point you should probably step in and be a dad, that doesn't really happen. But yet he gets to, have those like good guy moments, like I'm a good person. Even Blake, who is, when Amy meets him, a drug addict, he's the one, he gets to have this speech where he's like, we're too toxic. We come together and we just destroy each other and we do drugs and it's just not good for us. And I'm like, did they do this because like are people like threatening this? Then don't make the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, then no one is forcing you to make an Amy Winehouse movie. If you feel too scared to address the situation in the story, if you don't have a perspective on the story, and instead you're just trying to make like an Amy Winehouse movie because you're like, ooh, there would be fans, then don't do it. But this feels like everybody else gets a pass, and it's all like, well, it was Amy's fault. But it doesn't tell you why it was Amy's fault. She's just sort of like aggressively her own personality for no reason whatsoever. It doesn't really dive into reasons for things, like why does she do the things that she does? What is her influence? She's influenced a lot by I believe her grandmother who sang jazz, and she really likes that style, and she wants to be taken seriously as a musician, and she plays guitar, but they don't want her to play guitar. And I wanted to hear more from her. If anything, I would have preferred, it's like if you don't want to represent the people around Amy accurately, or likely accurately, I should say, um, then have them barely in the film. Priscilla this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like Priscilla was such a breath of fresh air last year in terms of biopics because of the way that it took the story and it took a person and it put them like, this is what it's like to be centered around everything else. And what we needed was to get inside Amy's head. And that doesn't really happen here. Marissa does a nice job playing Amy Winehouse. It's a nice imitation from what I can tell. I have no idea what she looks like. That's the downside of being a blind film critic, and one of the things that audio description can't make up for is, truthfully, it's the comparison. It's the how close did they get? And I've talked about this in other reviews of other biopics. It's the uncanny representation of a figure. Like, how much does that person look like? Are they nailing the movements? Are they nailing the little ticks and everything? For people who are like really big fans, they notice everything, you know, all of the body movement, the way somebody carried themselves, the way they sat upright or didn't sit upright, or whatever it is, the whole thing. It's not just like facially did they put enough makeup on you to make you look like the person. There's like a whole thing to it. But vocally, is pretty close. It's probably why she got it, to be totally honest, is because she already sounded close enough to, and then she just spent a lot of time really trying to hone that Amy voice so that it got as close to Amy as possible. For those scenes, like I said, when they obviously can't use the recording because it's very improvisational and nobody would have had Amy's voice in that moment. Nobody was in the room recording Amy walking into like a synagogue singing Fly Me to the Moon, you know, wherever she was. I don't know. It was just some Jewish people were praying, singing, whatever. I don't know what to call it. And Amy just comes in and she's like, fly me to the moon, let me. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? So yeah, it's not bad. This is not a bad film. It just isn't a film that really has much to say because it feels like it's afraid to say it. It feels like it doesn't want to actually say anything, but it wants to allude to everything. Like it can't pretend like Amy didn't do drugs and alcohol, right? So it has to show that. But to the extent at which it controlled her life or anything like that, it's all speculative. So they choose to just kind of keep it rather in the middle and not go too hard and not go too soft. There is a scene, one of the better scenes in the film is when Amy's like passed out on the floor drunk, and she passed out so hard she hit her head and she's bleeding. And I was like, thank God we're actually starting to have a voice. We're starting to do something here. And, you know, but then it allows Blake to come in and be like the hero. You need a hero. My drug dealing boyfriend is the hero in the end of the night. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what the fuck is going on in this movie, but it just gives people just like giant passes. It's just like, I don't know. Like, she is actually resistant to drugs in the beginning, and Blake is like, that's cool, but in my life, you know. And then she just kind of like joins in on it, and then later on he gets to be the one that has the speech. He's like, you know what, babe, we're no good for each other. I'm just like, what is this movie? Are we getting him out before the end because like we're afraid of, you know, representation? Is this like the Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain effect, where it's like, it wasn't me, you know? It's Shaggy, it wasn't me. Like, I don't know. It's, I've read a lot of things and seen a lot of people, and we're all over the place on this thing. And Most of people just agree it's not great, but the consensus at least is that Marisa Abela deserves like singular praise in a sea of whatever. The rest of the cast, honestly, like they're good, man. They can do anything. Like they do anything outside of this film. You know, I don't you don't need to come see this film to double check to see whether or not, Eddie Marson can still act. That dude is in like 100 movies. Pick a different one. Um, so yeah, I the audio description on this was pretty good. It was pretty solid. I thought I recognized the voice. If I had to make a guess, I would say Leilani Jones Wilmore, but Peacock refuses to let me watch credits to anything. I get like about 3 seconds of credits, and then I'm like, it's moving me into another title. I don't know how to stop it. I'm trying to figure out how to turn off the settings on autoplay. It's driving me insane because sometimes it's actually pulled me out before the movie's over, and I'm like, the movie's still playing. You guys are terrible at this. So this time it did finish the movie. I did get to the end, and I got the directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. I was like, I think like I got like the next credit after that, and then it was like, bam, out. You get to know two people, done. Um, so don't have this on any of your awards ballots. Nothing's happening with this. You can watch it's on Peacock. If you are an Amy Winehouse fan, I would say watch Amy, the documentary, which is again a representation of her. If you're not an Amy Winehouse fan and you want to know a different side of her and you don't really care how honest or truthful it is, then watch Back to Black. It's an interpretation of her story. It's not necessarily her story and doesn't even really feel like her story. It kind of feels like but this is the trend of biopics. I felt this way about Bob Marley One Love. I was like, what does this movie have to say? What are we saying with this movie? You know, I don't know what's happening with biopics nowadays. I was really happy with Priscilla last year because I felt like at least with Priscilla, I could feel what Sofia Coppola was trying to do, and she was trying to do something different and have a unique perspective on a biopic. But this is not that. I'm gonna give Back to Black a C. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.